is the largest contract in sports history. But with Mahomes getting paid, it's bound to have a domino effect on quarterbacks about to hit free agency. One of which is Dak Prescott, who has been franchise tagged and is still waiting for his new contract this summer. The Cowboys have until next Wednesday to work on this deal with Dak. And joining us now is Super Bowl champion and Fox college football analyst, Reggie Bush. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Reggie.
Good morning.
How do you think this deal is going to affect Dak Prescott's negotiations?
Well, I think this contract that Patrick Mahomes did is going to affect a lot of quarterbacks because one of the issues that I saw with the contract is him committing to the Kansas City Chiefs for 10 to 12 years. That's just too long. And a guy like Patrick Mahomes does not have to do that, right? One of the things about NFL football players and the league that people need to understand is that we cannot think like basketball players. We cannot think like baseball players in contracts because our contracts are not fully guaranteed. And so Kirk Cousins kind of gave you the blueprint, right? He showed you how to do it, get a fully guaranteed contract, which Patrick Mahomes can demand. He's one of those guys that can demand a fully guaranteed contract. And so when you go to the table, you got to think about the other guys as well. You got to think about the guys behind you because you bring them along, right? And so when Patrick Mahomes doesn't get a fully guaranteed contract, Jerry Jones is going to use that as a comp, right? And so that's what people need to understand. When you're the best player and you get paid a lot of money, your contract now becomes a comp for other players, right? And so if you don't get guaranteed contract, then other players will not get a guaranteed contract because Jerry Jones is going to say, well, look, Dak Prescott, I like you, you're great, but you're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not doing what he did. So how can I feel comfortable to give you a fully guaranteed contract, right? And then the other thing is just committing for far too long, right? I think Patrick Mahomes could have done it 4 or 5 years at a time and taken his time because he can demand that. Because that's one of the reasons why we work so hard so we can build up leverage, right? Patrick Mahomes just gave away all his leverage because the one thing that NFL players always have is we have the threat of leaving, right? The threat of going to another team, very similar to how Dak Prescott is doing right now. But when you have the best player in the NFL that's willing to sign these kinds of contracts, what that does is it sends a message to the owners. And I think Lee Steinberg, Patrick Mahomes' agent, I think he did his client a disservice because I think he sold him on the big number, right? The $450 million number that came out. It's the mega blockbuster number. But at the end of the day, it's not fully guaranteed. So that's not true. It's not the richest contract in sports history because the only thing that was guaranteed to Patrick Mahomes was $63 million, which does not make sense to me. When you're a Patrick Mahomes, you have to get more money guaranteed than that. You got a $450 million contract and only $63 million guaranteed. Now, what that says is you've committed to the Kansas City Chiefs for 10 years, but they have not committed to you for 10 years.
I agree with some of what you said. The Kirk Cousins deal is different because here's what Patrick Mahomes had working against him, where Kirk Cousins was totally free. Patrick Mahomes has 2 years plus the potential of 3 tags. So that's 5 years. So theoretically, the Chiefs don't have to do anything for the next 5 years. They can stand pat, and then what does Pat Mahomes does? He says, playing the tag, this year is 2.8, I think, 2.8. Next year is about 27 million. So theoretically, the Kansas City Chiefs really didn't have to do anything. Plus, you see what Dak's going through right now. Tag, and if they don't like they don't like the number that he's going to come back with next year, tag again, then they can come with the tag, another franchise or transition tag. I think that's the thing that Pat Mahomes looked at is like, hold on, wait a minute. They really have me under their clutching skill for the next 5 years if they want that. So let me go ahead and take this right now. And I agree. They looked at the totality of it and they said, man, we have an opportunity to sign the biggest contract in sports history. We have an opportunity to have a football player. That's never happened before at any point in time where a football player was the highest paid player in any sport. We get that. But if you look at, Reggie, when you look at his numbers, that in 2023, that number becomes guaranteed if he does anything in 2021. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. How you get guaranteed money 2 years in advance? They don't do that anyway. They don't do that on any job. You get paid for when you work. His numbers are going to come guaranteed in 2021 for 2023, which is unheard of. Now, I do agree. I believe he should have gotten more fully guaranteed money. I always thought for him to tie himself into a contract for this length of time, it had to be in excess of $400 million. I was thinking something along 150 to 200 million fully guaranteed, 300 million guaranteed. So I do believe he did give up some, but he had to take this deal. I believe he had to take this deal because he had 5 years where the Chiefs didn't have to do anything.
Can I push back on one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
Because he could have got $200 million fully guaranteed for 4 years, come back, hit him again for $300 million fully guaranteed. That's $500 million he just made fully guaranteed in 8 years, not in 10 years.
Well, I don't know if they. So in other words, you said take a 4-year extension, so that'll be 6 years total, and then do a couple of 150 to 200 million and fully guaranteed. I can concede that, but that's a long time. 10 years is a long time. And Skip and I was talking. I was thinking that I don't see him playing this contract out. They're going back to the table. One side or the other will come back to the table in 2025, 2026. This thing is not going to 2031.
If, in fact, the other side does want to come to the table, and that's not always the case.
That's true.
Okay,
exactly.
I want to say that Reggie Bush just made a powerful, compelling point. The truth is that Kirk Cousins' first deal when he went to Minnesota was actually a little better deal than the Patrick Mahomes deal in that Kirk got $84 guaranteed million for 3 years, right? $84 million guaranteed, every dollar guaranteed, but only for 3 years. And he's already renegotiated on a second round.
Right.
So the point is, that was sweet, but he had just played through 2 tags in Washington to get to that point, and he was free. I got you. I know Lee Steinberg very well. In fact, way back when, I helped him get into his business, and he was helping me in mine when we were both just kids out here in Los Angeles back in the 70s. But the point is, Lee, there are 2 agents who worked on this deal, but Lee was the out front agent. He is the best known of the agents, and I think the big winner here was Lee Steinberg, because now he can tell clients down the line as he recruits them, hey, I got $500 million for Patrick Mahomes. It's not $500 million because by my calculations, only 31% of this deal is now guaranteed. There are these mechanisms, which I have never seen before, these guarantee mechanisms that can be kicked in by your performance. But that's not guaranteed at this moment. The $63 million up front, as Reggie pointed out, you just got a signing bonus of 63. That is guaranteed. Way to go. You can take that straight to your bank. But after that, now let's get back to the Dak deal. Dak and his fairly new agent, Todd France, correctly sort of educated, guessed, and predicted that Patrick would get in the neighborhood of an annual $45 million. So they were asking for in the neighborhood of $45 million. It's a lot of money for a quarterback who has not won an MVP the way Patrick did and has not won Super Bowl MVP the way Patrick did. It's a lot of ask for a quarterback who last year went 8-8 and missed the Pro Bowl. And heading into last year, the NFL players did not even vote him into their top 100 players. And my man Shannon Sharp, sitting across from me down the stretch last year, gave Dak Prescott 7 Fs, as in fail, for his performance. And those games that started at New Orleans, and then there was Green Bay, and then there was at Jets, and then there was Buffalo, and then there was Chicago, and then there was at New England, and then there was at Philadelphia, and it was just nauseating for me because Dak did not play up to the levels I expected him to after he threw parties on the Giants and at Washington and Miami to start the year off. So the point is, it's hard to sell. Dak should make $45 million right now, so that's the impasse. And I do believe that they will not be able to get their heads together and compromise on a deal before the deadline, which is 8 days away. I think he's going to play for a tag this year of $31.4 million.
Which is not a bad deal for Dak Prescott because he can go back to the table and continue to renegotiate for more money. And so that's the thing that I keep coming back to with Mahomes is that the best player in the NFL cannot go back to the table to renegotiate for 10 years. Like, that just sounds crazy because the one thing for good players, when you're in the top percentage in your position, you have to continue to set the market when your time is up. If you continue to set the market, then you're bringing along everybody else. You're pushing the envelope, right? The fully